Georgia plays Alabama in the national championship in Indianapolis. Georgia's a 2.5-point favorite. According to DRF Sims, they like Georgia to win. Do you like Georgia to win?
I think Georgia is one of my favorite plays of the.
Oh, wow, really?
It's probably a best bet. I've seen they've moved to -3 at a bunch of books. I really like them because I feel like the public's going to be all over Alabama for understandable reasons. But if you look at like the computer metrics and all that good stuff, they still have Georgia as the best team in the country. I still think they are the best team in the country. Yeah. And I feel like you've got to kind of take that. You can't throw away the loss to Alabama because obviously it's the same team they're playing and they were dominated pretty handily in the second half. They hung in there for a little bit and then they faded down there, and Alabama did a great job offensively. But you got a team in Georgia, they're 13-1. They've looked so good, like unbelievably dominant in pretty much every game except for that one. They've had a great season. They steamrolled Michigan. Obviously, they need to have consistent quarterback play in the game to beat Alabama. But I think they're good enough to do it. I think Alabama played its best game of the season against Georgia. I think Georgia can learn from that tape and find a way to game plan something together and get there and get the win. So I like Georgia in this one. I like this spot for them. And I think they're two evenly matched teams, and I think it's really hard for either team to beat the same group twice in the span of like a month.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. That was Alabama's best offensive game by a long, long stretch. The Auburn game, they were terrible all season long. I think we kind of forget it because Bryce Young won the Heisman. But Alabama was not like an electric offense by any stretch of the imagination. They averaged over 40 points a game, which is, pretty good. But they did beat up on a lot of bad teams. You could say the same about Georgia. But in that Alabama-Georgia SEC championship game, the offensive line, which has been shaky all season, decided to play out of their minds good. And they completely stopped Georgia's interior pass rush. They were able to open up holes. Brian Robinson looked good. Bryce Young looked like a Heisman candidate. That was his Heisman moment. All of that. But with all that being said, I don't think Alabama has any chance to run back what they did. Now, will they play a good game? Yeah, 100%. This is probably going to be a close, grinded-out game. But I don't see Alabama being able to, for the second time in 3 games, do that same thing against Georgia. And what Georgia was able to do against Michigan really makes me excited for them. I think I'm on Georgia too.
I think they're really good. And obviously they lost that game, but I still think they match up well. The concern a little bit, I think fairly or unfairly to me, is still kind of Stetson Bennett. He played really well against Michigan, which I think was a good sign. But I don't know. I just have some doubts that
he's never beaten Alabama.
I like Bryce Young more than Stetson Bennett. I'll say that. I will say.
I would hope so. I would hope so.
But I think the overall team and what they're able to do, I do think there's some talent and overall ability there with Georgia that I really like. I like the overall team. I like what Kirby Smart's doing. I think they've got some good players. I think they'll find a way to bounce back and have a more dominant defensive performance, or at least a better defensive performance. And I don't know. It feels like the right side when you're playing the number 2. I like the matchup on the field. It feels like a good play, but I don't know. Like you're betting against Nick Saban as an underdog.
I was going to say, it does scare me that Nick Saban, I don't think, has ever been beaten by a former assistant.
Someone clipped him, right?
Oh, was it Jimbo? It was Jimbo. Jimbo this season was the first assistant to ever beat him. But my main point in saying that is Kirby Smart has never beaten Saban, and Saban kind of toys with Kirby. So with all that being said, I think this is a huge game for Kirby Smart at the same time. So in the SEC championship game, Alabama was playing for its playoff hopes. And I talked about it last week on the podcast that I don't think Georgia cared about that game as much as they necessarily should have, because if they lost by 70, if they lost by 100, if they lost by 300, they were in the college football playoff. They were playing for seeding. And you knew that the committee wasn't going to put Alabama 1 and Georgia at 4. So it was really, who are you going to play in the first game that's not Alabama? And I think this game it's like the SEC, it just means more. No, but I just needed to laugh out of that one. Thank you for laughing at my joke. I do think it means more. For Kirby Smart, he's never beaten Saban. Stetson Bennett, who is the walk-on turned JUCO product turned about to sign to Louisiana, and then Georgia called and he flipped his commitment back to Georgia, and he was the fourth string who worked his way up the depth chart during a COVID season because JT Daniels gets hurt and Jamie Newman opts out and all this crazy stuff. And now he's leading the team back to a national championship, I think for the first time since Jake Fromm did it in 2017. There's just so many storylines, and I think it means so much to Georgia. It is going to be hard. It's not going to be gimme by it's not a gimme. So, but I like you said, I like Georgia. I like -2.5. I like -140 on the money line. I don't know if I like the over. I think I might like the under too at 52.5.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting play too. Maybe a little Georgia with the under, something like that. But I think Georgia's the side. I really like them in this one. And you know what? If I if I die against Saban, whatever, if I lose that bet, that's fine. It is what it is. I bet against him earlier. I think might have taken Georgia in that SEC title game. I can't remember.
I think you did.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'll trust Georgia in this one. I think they're the best team. I felt for a lot of the season they were going to end up winning the national title. So I'll stick with it and take them to win it, even though Alabama's certainly dangerous. I thought like Cincinnati could have played more competitively.
Cincinnati could have, I don't want to say could have won that game because they couldn't have, but they could have been a lot more competitive. They could have been in it late with opportunities to win. I mean, early on, 2 dropped touchdowns or 2 missed opportunities to score touchdowns early in that game that would have kept it close. Who knows how the game script flips? And I mean, I just keep coming back to, we talked about it with, who was it? We talked about it last week with data points. I think we're really all ignoring the entire season that Alabama put together. We're all focused on these last 2 games, which you beat a Cincy team that isn't a Georgia team. They aren't to the standard. You barely eked out an Auburn win. You only won by 7 against Arkansas. You covered against New Mexico State. You barely beat LSU. And these are bad teams, and we just kind of forget because they handled Georgia fairly well.
It sounds really stupid, but like I think we're putting too much stock into Alabama's win over Georgia.
It's a rivalry game. Like everyone talks about rivalry games are different, right? Like you have to throw away the record book and things are just going to be different because it just means there's just more in it. Why are we putting so much stock into that game? Why? We shouldn't have that much stock in it. We should look at the X's and O's on the field right now, and Georgia probably wins almost every position group, maybe except quarterback. But at the same time, who knows? Maybe Stetson Bennett right now in this instance is better than Bryce Young. Not saying that Bryce Young won't be the better quarterback. He probably is the better quarterback right now. But
I kind of like Alabama's offense. Like they got some guys on offense that have done a lot of things. So I like them a little more offensively, but I think Georgia as a complete team is really good. And I don't think the sports books and like the general market have put that too much stock into the SEC championship. I think it's like the general public. So, I mean, like, is Georgia still being listed as a 3-point favorite? To me, kind of makes sense. Like, they've already lost to them once, but the metrics have them as the better team. So I think the line seems reasonably fair, but I just like it on Georgia's side. I think they're due for the bounce back. But fascinating to kind of see how, like, public perception around, Alabama's just smacked them and they have Nick Saban compared to this Georgia team that seems like they can get really close but haven't gotten over the hump. It was the same thing like a lot of years ago when you had Clemson, they would always choke in the big games. And then, of course, they ended up sort of breaking that stigma. And I wonder if Georgia is close to that, where they win this national title and maybe go on a little bit of a run. Seems like from some reports that Oklahoma quarterback transfer Caleb Williams has Georgia high on his list, right? From what I've seen, I haven't checked in a couple of days, but it seemed like they were up there in the running. Like, I wonder if Georgia's due for like a streak where it's like them and Alabama and Clemson, Ohio State. Like, have they reached that upper echelon where they're going to start contending and winning national titles on a regular basis?
Yeah. As of right now, what do you think the percentage of bettors on Alabama is right now against the spread?
I think it's reasonably high that the public at least being on. I don't know exactly what the numbers are. I was looking at some earlier, but forget what they were. But I think it's more of the number of bets are higher on Bama and the number of money or the amount of number of money, the amount like a 5-year-old, the numbers of monies, no, the amount of money on Georgia, I think is higher, which gives me, some hope too, where I think the number of bets has been a little bit higher on Alabama, but the line's kind of trending toward Georgia.
Yeah, 51% according to drf.com/sports. 51% of bettors right now are on Alabama. I don't have percentage of money in front of me, just the percentage of bettors. So, and also 57% on the over. So here, as we're picking this national championship game, we're fading the public.
I think that's a fun underplay actually,
I do
because
too.
it was really high scoring the first time, but it felt like I don't think it's going higher than that, where it feels like maybe it's a 28-21 gets you 49 points, something like that. If you have 52 and a half, you can even get 20 and 24, and you're still under that 52 and a half. So
Yeah,
that's an interesting one as well.
I like it. I like it. And so just to recap, we've talked a lot about, I think we're both riding Georgia -2.5, even -3. Would you even nudge up to -3?
Yeah, I think I'll take them at -3 too. I might.
Would you go to -3.5? Would you cross over the field goal?
I think I might. I think I might.
Would you go to -4? Do I hear -4?
I think I'm probably going to end up taking it at -3, so that I won't even have to worry about it. Is my guess. But once you get a little bit higher, a little -4, maybe I'm a little more skeptical. Maybe I just throw in money line or something like that. But I think I'll probably end up taking it at -3 and see what happens as it moves.
I think -3, -2.5 is the sweet spot there. DRF.com/sports. All our simulators like Georgia to win this game. So that's something interesting too. And the public is riding Alabama early on in this one. We're still a few days out from the national championship.